Hello. How is everybody? Good, I hope. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me give people time. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I had a special request for a topic, so I want to try to find her and make sure I let her know I'm on. There she is, right there. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Business Builder Basics. I am actually happy to announce we're on day 22 of the 30-day Boss Up Challenge. It's amazing how fast the time flies when you're trying to do business, basically. When you're really working hard at it, you just can't believe that you turn around and like 22 days have gone by. It feels like just yesterday it was day one. That's how I feel sometimes. But we're making it through, and hopefully you all are getting something out of it, and you're applying the skills that you're learning to the business that you're starting or trying to grow. So I hope that's working out for everyone. Thank you for everyone who is tuning in, my returning people who are participating in the Boss Up Challenge, my new people who may be seeing this video for the first time. I would like for you to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. I give this advice and I help people for free. All I ask for in return is that you all subscribe to the page. It really helps me out. Share, like, that's all. So, let's see. We're going to do our acknowledgements, and I wanted to, hi. Hey there, I wanted to acknowledge Compliment Jewelry. That's a repeat. Basically, you're going to constantly hear me shouting them out because they have some really beautiful stuff. And like, for instance, this piece here was custom made. It's called the bow tie. And I just feel like they just have the classiest taste. Now, this is not the jewelry that you buy when you're only trying to spend $5 or, you know, $10, but it's not that expensive either. It's the type of jewelry that doesn't hurt your ears, you know, because it's cheap and that kind of thing. So please check out complimentjewelry.com, and they do sports bracelets and a lot of nice stuff. And then if like you're getting married or just for any occasion, you kind of tell them something you have in mind, they'll design it for you. So it's really, really nice. Compliment Jewelry. Also, the founders of Compliment Jewelry are looking to expand, and they're looking for people who are willing to come on board as a partner, learn how to make the jewelry, do, I guess, all of the way that they operate. They will teach them their techniques and everything. Thank you, Christina. Thank you. They're looking for partners. So the partner doesn't have to come with any money. They don't have to come with any experience. They don't have to bring any supplies, equipment. They have a fully stocked jewelry lab, or whatever you call it, that they have everything they need. What they don't have a lot of is manpower. And people they're not looking for necessarily employees. They're looking for partners, people who will get with them and go through the building stage of trying to get to the next level. And so if you know anyone that's interested, or you yourself have been trying to consider what kind of business to get into and you don't have a lot of capital, you want to you want to contact Complement because they're looking for people. There's one of the founders right there, Nancy Griffin. Hi. So they're looking for talent. Just bring yourself. You don't have to have $1. Your time will be your investment, and that's how you will, acquire your ownership or whatever kind of deal or collaboration agreement the two founders work out. But they're looking for partners. They're looking to expand. They need the manpower. They want eager people that are ready to get out there and do some sales, and even multi-level marketing. It can be turned into one of those kind of things. So if anyone out there has been really struggling with ideas and they're like, man, I don't know what to do because I don't have a lot of money, I don't have a huge skill set, and who's going to want to do business with me? Contact them. I'll put the information after the video. Please remind me if I forget. I'll put the information. Please contact them if you're interested, okay? It's not employment. We're talking about ownership and partnership. Okay, those are the acknowledgements. The goal check-in. So the goal from yesterday, let's see, yesterday we talked about practicing what you preach. I want to say that's what it is, and I think the goal was to think about areas in your business, in your journey, that you need to improve. Areas for improvement, basically, with your business. I want you all to really think about, did you meet your goal? To even think about where you need to do better. Hey, Derek, did you even think about where you need to do better? Okay, that's what the goal was, all right? If you didn't do it, why not? Because that was a simple and achievable goal. Okay, so hopefully you guys did do the homework last night. So moving on to tonight's topic, there was, y'all know I always look for inspiration as far as what to talk about. And today, someone followed up with me about their business plan. And their business plan, they were off to a great start. I read everything, I looked it over. And the only section that they didn't really do, well, there was a couple other sections I needed to remind her to put in there. But the main thing, the meat and potatoes of it, was the financial piece. As far as like, what are you going to charge for your services? What are your startup expenses? And how are you going to determine the money-making potential of this endeavor? Because it's one thing to say, I want my company to be 6 figures by the year 2022 or something like that, because you can pump yourself up and you can just say that and tell yourself that that's what's going to happen. But when it comes to a business plan, you need to be able to qualify why you feel like you can do those numbers. You have to be able to figure out how to get to 6 figures. So if your goal in your mind is to get to 6 figures, figure out how much your services would cost, how much of those services you would have to offer, at what rate, with how many people offering those services would you need to get to 6 figures. So it's not that you can't say, I want my company to get to 6 figures, but you have to be able to qualify it. And the problem that people have is that they don't know where to start sometimes with trying to figure out, well, how do I know? I'm not in business yet. How do I know what my expenses are going to be? How can I anticipate how much I should charge? Well, that's part of the process. So that's what we're going to do tonight. So we're going to be working with numbers, not so much doing math, but we're going to be talking about the money and the different. We're going to talk about common startup expenses. We're going to talk about monthly expenses, and we're going to talk about how to come up with these figures, where you find your information, how you determine this information. Okay, so let's see. Sorry guys, let me move this over. Okay, let's see. So first, you want to calculate your startup cost, okay? How much money will it take to start your business, okay? And you want to know this so that you can request funding, attract investors, and estimate when you'll be able to turn a profit, okay? So to calculate your business startup cost, clearly you need to do this before you launch. I mean, I wouldn't suggest jumping right into something without having done this part first, okay? Because you don't want to get started with something and waste, because bosses really don't have time to waste. In theory, that's what we like to believe. We don't have time to waste. So you don't want to jump into something and then get to the money part later and realize it doesn't look too good, okay? So, or you don't have what you need to do like the bare minimum to get started. So there are benefits to calculating these startup costs. It helps you to estimate the profits. It helps you to do a break-even analysis, which is basically what it sounds like. How much business do you have to do just to break even? And of course, in most cases, that's not what you're going for. That's not what you're looking for. You want to do more than break even, okay? It can also help you to secure loans, like I said, attract investors and save money through tax deductions, okay? And so you're going to identify your startup costs first. You have to think about what you're going to need for your particular industry, because every industry is different, although there are some common expenses. So you have to first identify it. So get yourself a pen and paper right now. For those that are really bossing up and want to do this thing, get yourself a pen and paper. Let's work through this. Think about the type of business you're doing. Is your business what they consider brick and mortar? It requires a building or office space or something, some kind of space that you have to pay for. Is it an online business? Is it a service business? So determine that. And then some of the common startup costs you're likely to have would be office space. Do you need office space for your company? If you do, how much office space do you need? What is the minimum you could get away with to get up and running? Because keep in mind, you can always expand in the future. You don't want to start out too big, okay? You want to make sure that you do enough to get started. So office space. Keep in mind, there are a lot of innovative ways that people are renting office space. Now, one of the shout outs I did a while ago was Chico from The Perfect Office Solutions, and he has a bunch of other companies, but he has like, I think he opened up his 6th or 7th location, and you can just basically work out a deal where you rent office space just for like a certain day of the week or just temporarily. And that way you have multiple people sharing a space, and it makes it more affordable. In theory, it's more affordable. And a lot of times these places are done up very nicely, and they're decorated nicely. They usually have like a conference room or different things that businesses like to have. And that way, if you have clients for your business, or you need to call a business meeting to present to potential investors, now you can look like you're very professional and you have it together. But you need to consider the cost. So consider how much it's going to cost to rent or lease a space, what kind of space you need. Think about equipment and supplies. What kind of equipment and supplies do you need? Remember, we're talking about 2 categories. You have your startup costs that are one-time expenses, and then you have your ongoing monthly expenses. So some things are the type of things you're only going to pay for once. The things I'm going over now are the kind of things that are going to be ongoing. So equipment and supplies. Communications. That's usually referencing like your internet, you know, and phone service, that kind of thing. Utilities. Do you have to pay gas, water, electric? Make sure you ask these questions if you're leasing a space. It makes a big difference. Okay, like if your lease is triple net, then you're basically, you know, it changes things. You need to know the terms of your lease, because those utilities, man, they can hit you, especially like your Pepco, your energy bill. When it's time to heat and cool your building, you really will see differences in your bill. And so if you have those expenses, you need to know. And keep in mind, because of utilities kind of fluctuate, you need to really take an average for the whole year. So if you know that peak times are summer and winter and other times are lower, you want to kind of add up a year of what you think would be the lows and the highs, and then take an average and make that the amount you make your monthly amount, so that you have accounted for that amount. License and permits. So if you need a license, like for me, all of the businesses that I used to do were require licenses. And so there would be an application fee that you have to pay, and you have to maybe renew that license. And so you have to put that expense in there, because it can be ongoing. Trying to apply for a use and occupancy permit, zoning, all those things, they have costs associated with them. So before you're even making $1, you're actually putting out money just to get established. Okay? Insurance, oftentimes you're paying for premiums ahead of time. You know what I mean? And so you may need to, or you may have a government contract or some type of deal where you have to have insurance before you get started. I know someone that is interested in doing body removal, and he had to pay insurance premiums before he even got started, and he never really got to start because because you know, a number of reasons, but basically he had to pay that insurance, and it was kind of wasteful, because they make you have it up front before they'll give you your license. So there you have another expense. You know, so you have to think of these things. So the way you find out how much these things cost is by calling a company and get a quote. Please don't just pull it out of here and what you think sounds good, because that is a sure way to set yourself up for failure. You want to actually have some factual information, and then you want to inflate that a little bit so that you actually shoot higher than what you might really need, and that way you kind of have some padding and cushion there. But you don't want to inflate it too much, because you don't want it to look like to investors that your expenses are too high. So there is a balance there. Find that sweet spot. You want to factor in expenses for lawyers and accountants. This is one of those things where you may or may not need this. And you, like so one of the businesses that we're working on right now, we need to have an attorney. We need to retain an attorney on the front end before we start going around and promoting this idea to these big companies. Because even though we have the intellectual property rights to what we're doing, people get screwed over all the time. If you don't understand entertainment law, or just don't have an understanding of things, all you know is your passion and your heart for your business, and you just think you're going to get out there and everyone's just going to love your idea and you're going to pop. But there are some real sharks out there, some real predatory type of companies that will take your ideas and capitalize on them, and you get nothing or very little. So an attorney in that case would be something you want to account for on the front end. Whereas other businesses, you may only need to consult an attorney if you find yourself in a situation. So let's not be wasteful. Don't go out and put an attorney on retainer just to say I have an attorney, okay? You want to consider your staffing costs. Man, oh man, you want to consider this, because a lot of businesses that are employee-based, usually your employee costs are about half your trap. Your trap meaning how much you make. should not be more. It shouldn't be more. Do your employee costs first, and then whatever you need to make sure that whatever you're charging is going to make sure your employee cost is no more than half of that. If you're already over the half mark with your employee costs, now we're looking at trouble. We're looking at second guessing if this is the best business to be in, or if your price point is too low, you need to bring it up. So employee costs, salaries, and along with employees comes employer taxes, like the workers' comp, unemployment insurance, FICA, all those nice things that makes it expensive to have employees. And then this wonderful raise a minimum wage that they think is going to be so awesome for people, but what it's going to do is put people out of business, and then people are not going to have any job. They're going to have zero wage, because instead of getting 13 an hour, they're getting 0 an hour, because people are expecting small businesses to figure out how to pay $16 an hour for minimum wage. I think it's 15. I'm not saying that people are not worth 15 an hour, but what I'm saying is if you already have struggling small businesses, and small businesses make up the majority of the labor pool as far as employing people, you want to make sure you don't put small businesses out of business by holding them to these high standards. Now, I did hear that if your business has less than a certain amount of employees, you're exempt from having to pay that minimum wage, or there's like a delay with it, or some kind of something that helps the small business owner to survive. They recognize, that that's difficult. I think for some of these major corporations, they should be hit with that if they can afford it. So instead of the founder and CEO of certain businesses getting billions of dollars, maybe if they paid higher wages, that person would get less at the top, but still be filthy rich, just not as filthy rich. That's who that rule should be for, not me, not the people like me who are fighting hard and still in the trenches to make the money that we make. So minimum wage, you want to calculate that, and that's part of the projection too when you're considering employee salaries, because you always have to consider inflation. Really, with all of these things, you have to consider inflation. But let's not get overwhelmed. We want you to consider your startup costs and your monthly expenses, and we want to do a year-long snapshot, okay? Advertising and marketing. If you skimp on this, prepare to go down. Unless you're the type of business that for some strange reason doesn't require marketing or advertising. I right now can't think of any business that doesn't need marketing and advertising. So if you don't put forth enough money, if you don't make provisions for advertising and marketing, that's a problem. Don't cut corners in that area. Don't be wasteful, and don't do things that are ineffective as far as marketing. Find out what your market is and how to best reach it. Okay? So how much is it going to cost to research the market actually? Are you going to pay people to do that research for you? And then think about your printed marketing materials. How much is it going to cost you to get a website? Building the website and maintaining the website, and paying for the domain name, and paying for maybe G Suite, where you have all of the people you start up with. It might be like 5 of you team up together, and you all need your own email address. So now it makes you have to pay a certain amount of money per month. It's more, the more people you have. You have to consider these things, and always consider, do you need them? All right. So those are some common things that you want to consider. There's still plenty of other things that I left out. You want to look at office supplies, postage, travel expense. Depending on the business you are, if it's trucking, then you got to look at a lot of gasoline and fuel costs and that kind of thing. And so, just make sure that you sit down and do just what we just did, only you spend a lot more time with it, and the research that you've done on your business so far, it should give you an idea of what the expenses are. You know, I'm definitely an advocate of apprenticeship. Apprenticeships give you exposure to be able to work with somebody in the industry that you're interested in, and you get to see the inner workings. You may not be getting paid, but the information that you glean from the people you see and how you see things going, that can be like priceless. So volunteer to work at a business like the one you want to do, so that you can actually get that experience. Okay? So it will be worth it. It really will be worth it. Okay. Now, you want to get a full financial picture of your company. Once you add up these expenses, your startup costs could be exorbitant depending on what kind of business you are. Certain type of businesses like child care centers, or like opening up a gym perhaps, where you have a lot of equipment and things that are necessary, you may have to have a lot of capital to do that. But if you don't have a clear picture of the financial snapshot, how are you going to know your price point? How are you going to know what to charge? Okay? How are you going to know? Because a lot of times I think people have just in their mind what they feel they should get for their services, or what they would like to get for their services, or whatever they're doing, or the product they're selling, but that's not what they're going to get. And so you have to look at your competitors, right? And you probably want to undercut them a little bit, unless you're trying to be some kind of premier place where cost is no issue for your customer base. But otherwise, you may want to get right in there and see if you can afford to undercut them. You may not be able to afford to undercut them, because sometimes the larger a business is, you know, the more they're making, and they may be able to bring their prices down just because of their exponential growth. So don't just set your prices based on what you think you're supposed to get. Do the research, figure out how much those services are worth, or your product, and then put that in your business plan. So you do all your adding. I recommend using an Excel spreadsheet. That's what I use. Plug in on one column, you put the category, right? And then in the next column, you put the expense for that line item. And you just go down. And what you can do is, if you want to see a few different scenarios, in case you might feel like you're wrong about something and you just want to have a few different scenarios, you can have like 3 columns of different prices that you put, different quantities you put. So you might put, for your average utilities, you might have $300 in one column, $400 in another column, and $550 in another column, just to see the 3 different outcomes when you finish. So you go ahead and you line that up, and you add in your summations and your equations and different things, and then you do the same thing with your income. You can use a different sheet in the same workbook, I want to call it, for Excel. You use a different sheet. Then you do your income. Well, all the sources of income, because sometimes you have different sources of income. It's not just one product or just one service. And so the person who needed assistance today with getting started, she's going to be offering a number of different services. So what you need to do is jot those services down in one column, and then put 3 different columns for what you would like to charge. Do like a high end, an undercut low end, and something in the middle, basically, for all of the services that you're going to provide. Okay, and then add that all up. Then you have another sheet on the same workbook in the same file, where you take your expenses, you can take your income first, and subtract your expenses from your income. All right, and what do you get? If you see either a negative, I think Excel usually uses parentheses. If you see parentheses and in a quantity, no good. You're in the red. That's what that means. You're in the red. It means that your expenses exceeded your income. Now, the thing is, that actually can happen in business, which is why some people need startup capital to put towards that, to make sure that that's covered, that deficit is covered. But if that's how you're going to be for, like, you're in your 6th year and you're still in those parentheses, you want to get out of those parentheses. You want to see just a number there with no negative, no parentheses, and that would mean you have a net profit. A net profit. So I remember there were times where I had the daycare and I set up this spreadsheet with this, I created this budget, and I'm telling you, there were times where I would celebrate if we was in the black by just like $5. I'm telling you, because there have been times we've been in the red by $3,000, and that money has to come from somewhere. Usually it was coming from the other businesses that we had. So sometimes you're happy just to see $5 or $10, if you know you're improving. But of course, the ultimate goal is to definitely do better than that. And the daycare actually is doing better. It's not better, I should say. It's hanging in there. It's not in the red, and it's actually turning a little something. So kudos to Tierra for hanging in there with that. So anyway, you want to be in the black. Okay, you definitely want to be in the black. If you find that your number you come up with on your projected figures in all 3 columns, if all 3 columns don't look good to you, I hate to break the news to you, but you may want to go back to the drawing board and figure out another business. And that's normal. That's normal. Do not think that you've thought about this idea, you've embraced it, you've spent a lot of time going hard at thinking about it and doing your business plan, and you get to this point and you're just like, those numbers don't look great. It's okay to scrap that idea and to start with the next idea. It's much better to do it at that stage than to actually get into it and live it. To actually live those numbers is hard. When you see those parentheses, living in the parentheses is a nightmare. So I would rather cut my losses in the beginning with just the projections, okay? You have to learn how to cut things off that aren't working. That is a skill, I think, that people have. It's a skill that can be learned. Learn when to cut things off when they're not working for you. So this financial piece is one of the, if not the most important aspect of the business plan. I think it's definitely the most important, because you're in business to make money for the most part. I don't mean, even in nonprofits, you have to go through this process, because IRS wants to see financial statements and they want to see how your budget and your projections are. So you have to do this, folks. I know you all may not like numbers or whatever, but you have to do this. And maybe this should be one of the first things you do before you put a lot of thought into a mission statement, or what your logo is going to be and all of that, what the name of your company is going to be. Don't start with those things. Start with this. And then if it's not what you want to see, move on. Because chances are there may have been things that you even did not think about and put in that budget. And so if those numbers weren't looking good and you get into it, now there are the extra things that happen you may not have anticipated, and now it's putting you at breaking even or not enough to make it worth your while. So yeah, the startup cost. Now don't be discouraged if your first couple of years, like I said, if you're running in the red, if you had high startup costs, you may actually be paying yourself back for startup costs could be a line item expense category. So I actually had that for the daycare because I put $250,000 into that building that I did not own, and it was coming from other businesses that I owned. I felt like the daycare owed the corporation. So in the budget, I had a line item for a certain amount of money that should have been factored in for paying the other companies back. Right now, the way that that's going to happen is by getting the 15% profit from the collaboration agreement. So the money that goes from that should go towards paying for what the daycare owes the other businesses. But in actuality, to tell you the truth, the way that I was able to get a lot of the money to do that was through the 941 taxes with the IRS. I forced the IRS to give me a loan pretty much because I didn't have enough capital to do the kind of things that I needed to do. So there you go with that rob Peter to pay Paul kind of thing. So the money thing is important. I didn't anticipate that building was going to drain me of $250,000. I never would have imagined. But it just seemed like as we kept going in deeper and deeper and deeper with the permit issues and the construction, and it just was always more and more and more required. So those of you all that are interested in daycare, assisted living, those are very, very high overhead businesses. What I suggest is not to not do those businesses because we need them, but own the property that they're in. If you make it a habit to own the property of every business, every location you do business out of, now it doesn't hurt so much when you break even because you know that your net worth is going up because you're paying for your assets. Okay, so it's still benefit there. If you're renting from someone and breaking even, it feels like you're flushing money down the tubes and wasting your time. So if possible, try to own the properties that you do business out of, and that can help you with your bottom line. That also helps when you own the property, you can draw up a lease with yourself, but you know that ultimately, if you're your own landlord, you don't have to raise your rent if you can't afford to pay it. Now, if you can afford to pay it, the business can afford to pay it, raise your rent above what your mortgage is, have your business pay you for the use of your personal property, and get that net profit from that. That's another stream of income that can be put in your 1040 tax return under a Schedule E for the rental of a property, another property. So these are just little financial tips here about how to start up, what you should consider. I'm already over my 20-minute mark with the information, but I needed to get all of this information to you because there definitely should be at least one person watching this video who is really taking this in and making sure that they're getting busy with this because they need to do this for their business plan. Otherwise, it's very incomplete, and I feel like while I might be able to look at it to see if it's grammatically correct or to see if the idea in general sounds good, that part is doable. But in order for me to give any kind of feedback about how viable the business is, or if this is something you should pursue, or if this is something I'm interested in, or whatever, I would need definitely to have like the financial piece and that whole picture put together. Okay, do a part 2. I think I covered everything. I tell you what, if I feel like I left a lot of stuff out, we can cover part 2. For those of you all that actually were doing this right now and trying to think of things and jot things down, if you all feel a part 2 would be helpful, because that will give you all time to go online and start Googling and researching the price for certain things. If you want to do that and come back tomorrow and start to have some interaction and ask questions or you know, we can do that. Just let me know, and I can plan for that to be what we do tomorrow. Otherwise, I'll be looking for a different topic to do. So that's it then. I'm going to open up for Q&A. Are there any questions about how to calculate startup expenses? I'll wait a little while. The views are going down, so I think people got what they needed. So believe it or not, this is something that probably after I go offline with you guys, this is something that I need to start working on for one of the businesses we're in. Remember yesterday when I talked about practicing what you preach? Well, we jumped into this thing from an emotional standpoint because we just knew it was going to be a great idea. And we really did not do it the right way. So now I'm actually starting fresh, and now I'm going to do this part of it to see, like, what do we need actually to be able to move forward with this in a way that'll work. Yeah, with lawn, you don't really have a lot, but the equipment costs. So, yeah, with lawn, I would imagine just the fuel, equipment purchase, equipment maintenance, staffing costs, insurance, possibly, depending on where you're doing this service. If you have really like high class people that, I mean, you don't want to, like, let's say you, I have a perfect idea, perfect example, I mean, of what to tell you. At the house I live at, actually, the home my mother had built, she has a sprinkler system for the lawn that goes underground, and it pops up when the grass needs to be watered, right? And somebody ran over one of them. I don't know why it was up above the ground. Maybe they had their blades too low, but it ruined one of the sprinkler heads, and that sprinkler head was like $400. I don't remember exactly, but so let's say that owner, like my mother, was pissed off, you know, then like the company that did that might be held responsible. Now that's something you probably could just pay out of pocket and just be upset, like, dang, I had to pay that out of pocket. But imagine if it was something a little more serious, or imagine if you have a crew and one of your guys is cutting grass and a rock comes up and hits him in the eye, because, you know, the force of the blade, sometimes freak accidents happen, and now this guy is blind in one eye. Now you have to pay him workers' compensation. Well, you don't pay out of your pocket, but the insurance policy that you've been paying for as long as you've been in business, now is going to pay that person workers' comp. Workers' comp is the worst thing that ever happened to employers, in my opinion. It's one of the worst things. Unemployment insurance and workers' comp. And you know, you can tell the difference between a boss and a worker, because when I talk about things like minimum wage, unemployment insurance, and workers' comp, and I say that I can't stand those things, if you are like, oh no, that's great, I was on unemployment, or I'm trying to get this, I'm trying to get that, then there's a separation there. That right there, if you are into those things, then you know there's a separation there, because you know the expense associated with those things and how much people exploit those things. When it comes to profit projections, how can you project profits for years ahead when you haven't even opened? I'm still planning, and I'm not sure how my costs will change over the years. Well, see, that's the thing. So what you do is you don't really know. So these are projections. What you do is, like, there is like a standard kind of inflation. I'm not sure what the percentage is, But you want to start with like what your current thing would be, and then you can like apply, like for instance, in my child care center contract, there's a clause in there that says that, you know, we can increase our tuition annually by up to 5% or something like that. At the assisted living, same thing. Every year there's a cost of living increase. And so you just basically can do it like based on a percentage, usually like 3 to 5% for your expenses and your income. But remember, even if you project that you're going to increase your prices, doesn't mean that your customer is going to be able to afford it, even when you first start. That's what happened to me with assisted living. We deserve and we should get no less than $3,000 a month. But when you have empty beds to fill, and there are people who only have $2,000 a month, sometimes you lower your price. So, and that can actually, if you do that too much, now you're going to end up working against yourself. And you have to ask yourself, is that the business you want to stay in? But you have to basically do your expenses first, and then make sure you set your price point at a place that leaves you with the amount of profit you want to see. That has to, so you put that right, but then you have to go and look at your competitors. See, the competitors can really be the thing that is a deal breaker for you. Because a lot of times, especially in that kind of field, people want to go with the cheapest. It might be an employer. I know I used to pay for employees. There were times where I paid for employees to get their CPR certifications and everything. And you do it as a group, and you search the internet and try to find someone that provides those services. And the first thing you ask them is, how much do you charge for infant, child, and adult CPR with defibrillator training? And they tell you their number, and if the last person you called was cheaper, you're going to call that other person back. So that's why you want to research your competitors, like, you know, the people that are certified with American Heart Association and those kind of things. You want to see what people are charging. I'm not exactly sure how you find that out, because there's so many people that can provide those services. They're independent trainers. It might not be a part of a bigger organization. But the best I can think is to maybe Google it and get yourself no less than 3 price points to compare, and then put yours in there. Then you have to decide, what kind of business are you going for? Who are you trying to be in your industry? Are you trying to be the one who comes in with some innovative twist, or you put a spin on your services? You want to be the high class one. You want to be higher priced than everybody else, because you want to say, listen, what we do here, we're not going to undercut ourselves because we are providing top-notch service. Like, that's something that I would suggest like a hairstylist do, or a hair salon. Don't try to be the lowest. You want to be the exquisite facility. Right? Now, for what you're doing, I don't know, but I think it's only but so glorious that can be, that will make anybody want to pay more for it. You know what I mean? Usually, they're generally very similar. Like, it's kind of standard what you do in those classes, but if there's something you could do, you have to determine where you're going to fall amongst your competitors. What are you aiming for? And then as soon as you open your doors, as soon as you start, and that phone isn't ringing, or no one's logging into your portal and paying and signing up, and you don't see your calendar getting full, now you have to determine a couple of things. 1, is your price too high? 2, what are your marketing strategies? I don't suggest lowering your price if you did not market properly. Because if you're marketing properly, then it might be that people just haven't found you yet to be able to pay the price that you want. You need my number? Okay, inbox me. Well, I'm not sure if you're talking about my number, but I guess whoever you're talking about, inbox whoever you're talking about, and then I'm sure you can get that. But yeah, so the projections, it can be hard, but it's like, all I can say is for your expenses, inflate those, make them higher than what you think they might be when you do your research. And for your income, make it lower than what your optimal income is, and then do your math. And or you can, like I said, you can do all the different kind of calculations. You can have that spreadsheet and you can have like 10 different columns with 10 different scenarios and see. And maybe sometimes when you do that financial statement, especially if you do it with the Excel spreadsheet where you can delete things easily, you can like delete a row, you might be able to see, well, dag, what can I do to make, if I can't really make my prices go up because the competitors are much lower than me, what can I do in the expense column to make things doable? Well, maybe I shouldn't be leasing a building 30 days out of a month. Maybe I shouldn't have just a traditional lease. Maybe I should consider going to people's site instead of having them come to me. You know, that's probably what you were thinking, but I'm just saying, like, if there's a way that you can provide a business and you don't have to have a building, and you can use like your home to be where you keep your equipment and your materials and different things, have yourself a file cabinet, your laptop or whatever, you know, it looks good and it's nice to have an office, it looks professional. But if you're paying like $3,000 a month for a lease, you see that your net profit is only like $2,000 a month. Now, if you eliminate that $3,000, now your column changes to $5,000 net profit, and maybe that sounds more attractive. You know, so think about how to eliminate expenses. I always say saving money is like making money, and that's why I be like begging my mom to, because some of the houses that we bought as a family were bought during the time of the predatory lending. And so we have like inflated mortgages, and I'm like, please try to get a modification, because if you can save $1,000 a month on 4 different mortgages, you now feel like you made $4,000 a month instead of paying $4,000 a month. So that's one thing you can do, is try to figure out how you're going to do your operations. Another place where you can cut expense, if you really want to get started and you really want this business to go, that employee category, guess who's going to be your first employee? Guess who's going to be the first person, you know, doing the work? It's going to be you, right? So now you know that because you're in boss up mode, you know that you may have to go without paying yourself. Yep. You. Yep. And so now that line item can disappear, but be careful with that. Because the problem that's a mistake that I made, right? I had a lot of family working with me. I had my husband at the time working with me. And because we were doing things and not paying ourselves, or paying ourselves so little, it wasn't really the equivalent of what another person off the street would be willing to accept. And so what it ended up doing is it gave me a false sense of profitability, which kept me doing those businesses longer than what I should have, right? Because the only way we were really getting as much profit as we were getting is because we were wearing so many different hats. So I was the accountant, I was the attorney, you know, I was the caregiver, I was, you know, everything you can think that I could be. That's what me and my family were, pretty much. And so, but starting out, it's perfectly acceptable for you to fill in that spot, save the money until you can get to where you want, but make sure you leave in your projected budget, make sure you put what the real price of employing someone other than you would be, because ultimately, if you want to expand very big, you can't continue doing the hands-on work. Because if you're tied up with doing the hands-on work, like teaching the actual class, now you can't be out networking and collaborating and figuring out how to get your business in 30 different states. That's what people don't understand about boss mode. that's when things can start to get tough with you and your partners and you and your employees, because they see that you're not in the trenches anymore, you know, and they feel like you don't want to do the work, or you know, you're lazy or something. People think all kind of things, but what it is that maybe you are the creative genius and the boss and the CEO that is responsible for directing and leading the company and figuring out ways to expand and grow. You should not be stuck working hands-on, because it's a disservice to your company. And anybody with a wealth consciousness and business mind would understand that. So make sure that you don't try to put yourself hands-on long-term if that's not the vision you have for your company. That's definitely not the vision I have. I never had the vision that I was going to be a child care teacher in the classroom or an assisted living caregiver for the rest of my life. But I was willing to do it when we started to get it going. You know, so it's sometimes though you find yourself back, depending on how big your business is, you might find yourself back hands-on even after you've been operating for a long time. Like if you hit hard times, so you got to stay ready, basically. Any other questions? Go back and say hello to everybody. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Maurice, Mom, Lerone, Cornell, Lorenzo, of course, Derek, SQ, Greg, I've seen him in here before. Welcome back. Rick Brown, Shay Pinkney, John, Busy, Anthony, Brian, Michael Carter. Hey, welcome back. He comes a lot. Uncle Paul, I hope you're feeling all right. Danielle, Rob, Travis, Edward, Lavarelle. I've seen that Lavarelle name before. Welcome back. Max Out Ace and Jay. Thank you all for stopping through. Are there any more questions? I'm happy to hang out and talk about any questions you might have. Don't feel like you're inconveniencing me. I actually like it when people have questions and letting me know that they have specific questions about their business, because it lets me know that they're actually doing something. They actually need like consultation. No problem. I hope that helped. I know you were not really feeling doing that part of the plan, but it's so important, and I wanted you to get started, and I'm like, I'll do it right alongside with you. You know, I'm here if you need more ideas. I really just wanted to get that pencil in your hand, or get that laptop in your lap and have you start plugging away and thinking about all the expenses you may not have thought of. And then go ahead and research your competitors and see what they're charging. I would say in the business that you're going into, my approach would be to undercut people. Especially if you're going to be doing it yourself, you'll be able to afford to undercut people. You can start out undercutting people, but remember, just because you make projections doesn't mean that at any point, unless you're a nonprofit, then it's a very strict budget. You have to go along with what's for that fiscal year. But if you're like just a private for-profit, you can change your prices anytime you want. They can go up and down. You can give discounts if you want to. It's totally up to you. The other thing you have to be concerned about, maybe not so much in your industry, but when customers don't pay, it's like in your proposal or your financial plan, you have to consider, this might be my price, but what if I'm providing these services and I'm paying these employees and paying all these expenses to provide the service, and the person got the service, but now they don't pay me? In your case, that's probably not going to be an issue, because it might be. It depends on how you set it up. If you require payment up front, then no. But if you accept checks and then they put a stop payment on the check after you gave everybody their certificates, or their cards, little stuff like that might happen. But so you have to factor in that you may not get paid sometimes. You may have bad debt. I think there's somewhere you can write that off on your taxes too when people owe you. But that's only if you do an accrual basis of accounting and not a cash basis of accounting. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah, an attendance minimum. Yeah, that's a good idea because you have to think. That's a good thing too. So you need to do when you're doing your budget, you're gonna do like an overall general budget, right? Where you're looking at what it costs to get started up, like buying those mannequin things and the whatever, whatever you need. You're gonna do all that. Then you're going to do like what you overall would want to see for your monthly bottom line. But then you have to think about, and this is where it gets more specific in your plan because you're breaking this down. It might be several pages. You break it down that class sizes there will be a minimum of 5 participants in order to hold the class, because you don't want to provide a service and then the minimum makes you lose money. You need more help. What different type spreadsheets? You say you want help with Excel? How to use Excel? Excel is like, I won't say it's my best friend, but we're really good friends. Excel is, I'll go into Excel in a minute and try to figure out calculations. Once you get rolling with it, it's easier to maneuver. But if you're saying what I think you're saying, Derek, the best way to learn is to go into the application, the app, open up the Excel spreadsheet, and start playing around. Yeah, start playing around. Like, open it up, put numbers, words in different columns. Click on every single button and every single drop down item option one at a time to see what that does. It takes time, because even if somebody teaches you and they're standing over your shoulder and they're like, okay, go click there, okay, do this, that's not going to necessarily stick with you. So it's best to just get in there and start playing around with it, and then you start to learn what different things do. But it has a lot of features and things that you can do. So you can use it and keep it very basic, where you just have like columns and you're adding at the bottom or adding at the end of rows, or you can really get fancy with it and have it correspond with a Microsoft Word document to merge information into a form letter or an invoice. I mean, I've done all of that, and it was very useful. You think he's talking about the break-even analysis and profit and loss? Well, I think, hey, Tashawn, you say you need, let's see, more help with a different type of spreadsheet. When you say spreadsheet, you're talking about Excel spreadsheet? Or you mean your particular document you're working on? Hey girl, thanks for tuning in. We're talking about how to calculate your startup expenses and how to make sure that before you get into the business, you see if you try to project what the expenses are going to be and what your income needs to be for you to make the kind of net profit you want to make, basically. All of them, so everything I said pretty much. So you basically need to learn how to use Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, and you want to get some assistance with working on the specific kind of figures that go with lawn care service. Is that what you mean, Derek? Yeah, so Tashawn, like, so for you, like, let's say for your book, I don't know if you've already done it, but let's say you're going to make a decision whether you're going to have paperback books or just an audio book or an ebook, right? And then you look at, well, how much does it cost to put my book on Audible, right? How much of a percentage are they going to take? Or how much would it cost to actually produce a hardcover book versus a soft cover book? Or how much will I have to pay an editor, right? And so you do all of this, and then you figure out, now this is how much I want to sell my book for. Do you have any assistants working for you? I don't know. I have managers. I have people. Basically, I'm to the point now, Tashawn, well, I don't step foot in the buildings, basically. One of the beautiful things about Tashawn here in the chat is that her and I used to live together, and she's one of the people who saw me at the hands-on, in the trenches level when I first started. But yeah, now, so there are employees, there are managers, assistants, assistant directors, resident managers. Probably right now, when I last looked at payroll that was just run between contractors and employees, I think it was maybe about 25 people. So still small. But yeah, you were there. You saw. Yep. And I didn't know what I was doing, really. I didn't know what I was doing, really. I didn't have an MBA. I didn't have a degree in business or anything. I just was this person who wanted to do all these different things and was excited and willing to do what I had to do, but it was rough. Yep. Oh, I remember that holiday loaf you used to make. And that little fake ground beef you would make just by using flour and water. Oh man, I made so many mistakes, and Tashawn, that's part of why I'm doing this 30-day boss up challenge, because I want people to see that I had a baby young. I was foolish at times. I am just like a lot of other people, so I want them to see that when I got started, I made a lot of mistakes and I learned, and I want to actually share with people some of those mistakes and advise people on the proper way to do things, at least as how I see it now, 13 years later after I started the businesses. Because I think when you came around, that was at the very beginning because if I was living at the house in Waldorf at 1210, then yeah, that was like within the first year of startup. Yep. I'm definitely trying to still do my thing, still starting new businesses, still doing things. I really enjoy starting businesses and being in business. I realized that even if I didn't have to, even if I had like a man that was rich and took care of me and all of that, I wouldn't necessarily work as hard, but I still would be out here being a boss. I enjoy it. I really do. I think it's just in some people. And then in other people, it can be groomed. I think I was one of the people that I just had hustle in me. And I don't think it's ever going anywhere. Because I want to be a multi-millionaire. A millionaire is not good enough. I used to think that becoming a millionaire would be it. Once you do that, you're done. But I realized that you can be a millionaire and still not have like all the cash that you want in your pocket and be able to just do all the things you want to do all the time. So yeah, I still have work to do. So I'm growing with the audience, basically. We're like evolving together. But yeah, those were the hard times, Tashawn, because I think when you were around is when I was trying to be the daycare provider, Monday through Friday for the home daycare, and then every other weekend I was running up to the Upper Marlboro Assisted Living Home to work from Friday to Monday morning nonstop, come back home. I just remember it was a mess. I think you were around when I had that situation with Brian, with my son, when I had like, I won't even get into it again, but I know you were around for the hard times. You saw how challenging it was. Those days were very stressful. I was definitely hard to work for and to work with. It was so much to do and not enough people. We were doing things that were janky and cutting corners and robbing Peter to pay Paul. I remember when we had opened up when I bought the house next door, we had opened up the daycare next door and didn't have a license and got shut down. And, you know, when I think back to all of that, I was just like, man, there has been an evolution for sure. Yep. Those days were very difficult, and that's what I'm here to tell people, is that if they see the outcome. So like one of the days when I first started doing these live streams, I showed people how much money I made off of just one of my businesses the first 8 days in March. Everybody saw it and people was like, wow, wow, wow. Oh, let's go see what she has to say. Let's see what she's talking about. And they wanted that outcome, but they didn't want the process. When I actually explained to them like what it took to get going and to do that particular business, it was like viewers started disappearing. You know, it was like, okay, never mind. She actually had to grind and hustle and almost give her life for the business in order to do that. And that's what people don't understand. I don't know any easy ways to make money. Not anything that's like just super easy from the start. I don't know of anything. I definitely took a chance. Boy, I'm telling you, Brian was 3 and I quit my job. I didn't know if my business plan was going to do what I thought it would do. And it didn't do exactly what I thought it would do. But there was no guarantee that I was going to be successful, but I had a mouth to feed. I remember it was hard. It was hard back then. It can be hard now, but for different reasons. Some people are not willing to take a chance. Nope. And I understand why. You know, because people feel like they could risk it all. They could lose it all. And it's good to know yourself too. If you know you don't like to work hard, if you know you're not the person who sticks with something when the going gets tough, then there are just certain things you shouldn't do. You might do a side hustle, but there are certain things a person wouldn't. They just should not try to get into business, hardcore business, if they know they don't have that drive. Because there are going to be times where your businesses still have to operate even when you're sick, depressed, stressed out, pregnant, have babies, divorces. You know, the businesses don't stop for you in your life. And so learning how to navigate a business when you have life going on and you have parents getting sick or people passing away or things happening, like business doesn't care about your life. So once you make the decision to take that leap, now you have a responsibility. And I think there's a lot of people that just don't want to do that. And that's fine, because I'm here to motivate the people that want to consider. I want the people that are at least trying to consider it. And maybe after you hear my talks, there may be people who decide, no, I don't think I want to get into that. I don't think I want to be self-employed. No shade, there have been some Indians. Everybody doesn't have what it takes to be a chief. And that's okay. What's for you is for you, and what's for them is for them. Exactly. See, you know, I want to see everybody winning. And I would love to see everybody playing their position, doing what they want to do, and doing it well. I love the people that want to be good employees. They want to show up for work. They want a paycheck, and they just want to do their job and nothing more. I love those people. My hat's off to those people And bosses need those people. You know what I mean? It's like they need the bosses and the bosses need them, right? The bosses, my daughter made a real funny comment today. I told her that I was about to get my first profit check since I did the partnership with the person at the daycare. And she was like, well, you haven't been over there in a long time, so why should you get any money from it? And I said, honey, I put $250,000 into that building. All that furniture over there, those desks, those chairs, those customers that are there now, the paint on the walls themselves, all that stuff was in there because of me. And so now that I'm not there anymore, somebody else walked into that and was able to take that over. So I should never have to step foot in the building again, and I should still get money. And she was like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand now. And I was like, yeah, how would you feel if you started a lemonade stand and you bought all the stuff you needed, you built the stand, painted it, made a fancy little sign, got your people coming, and now you get the idea, you hire somebody to take that over, and now you're like, all right, if you run this one, I'll let you keep this much of the profits, but I'm going to go a couple of blocks down and do another lemonade stand. So do you feel like you shouldn't get money from the first lemonade stand you created? And she was like, no, I should get money. And I was like, there you go. These are the conversations that I have with my kids. But so you have people, you have people that think that bosses, don't deserve to be paid, or that they're these bad, terrible people that just want to get rich off the backs of employees, and and I think there are cases where you have some people that are pretty terrible to their employees. There are times where I've not been the greatest employer. I never intentionally tried to be like abusive or anything, but I just know that my maturity level and my sophistication, I started when I was 25 years old. And so, I was very unrefined. I'm still growing, but I was like very unrefined. And I also don't have a lot of patience for foolishness, and I don't really have cut cards, and I kind of just speak truth to people. Even in my personal life, that's not well received sometimes. So imagine if the employees have to deal with me doing that. So yeah, everybody can play their position, and as long as people, they need each other. Employees, owners, they need each other. And there should be a mutual respect. Not so much that one is better than the other, because without one, the other can't exist. And when you understand that, that's when you learn to appreciate and respect each other. Some people don't have what it takes. They just don't even want to. Some people know they don't. They'll tell you, I'm not doing that. No, thank you. I'm going to go to my good government job, get my sick leave, get my 401k, and take my vacation every month, and I'm good. And you don't hear me, criticizing that person. But when they get furloughed, they're stressed out, they need to borrow money, they're on Facebook doing GoFundMes, or, it just kind of lets you know that maybe people don't understand what financial freedom is, because you can still have a job and have a side hustle. I just feel like everybody should have multiple streams of income. Even if you're not your own boss, I think everyone should have multiple streams of income. Financial freedom and a wealth consciousness is what I'm talking about the most when I say boss up. But yeah, self-employment is a big thing, but there are other ways to boss up and take charge of your life financially. Yeah, but it's hard, even right now with the businesses that we're starting now. Every time you go from that ground up level, you just feel tired. You're just you're staying up late. It's all you can think about. You got to remember to step away from your laptop and make sure your kids get dinner. Make sure that you're just not falling into this zone where everything around you disappears, because that's what tends to happen because you just want, you know that you want to get this thing going so badly, and you know all the work it's going to take to make it happen. And that part, that never changes. I suspect that if I were to ever get very wealthy, then maybe it wouldn't be so hard at the beginning, because you would have like so much money, so much capital that you could pay everybody. But I still feel like there is a certain art and there's a certain talent associated with being a good entrepreneur and a good business person. I don't think everybody has good business acumen, and I do think it's a skill, and I do think it's a talent. And I think, you know, even if you have a lot of money, you have people that are in charge of a lot of money and they lose that money or blow it because maybe they didn't have the best business sense, you know. So it's important to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. Any more questions? Thanks to Sean. I love it when people like Tashawn and people. Part of the joy of doing this on my personal Facebook page first to get my feet wet is that people who have known me literally since I was a baby, all the way up to people I just met more recently, I get to have people see me and know that it reminds me of different stages of my life and to see where I am right now. And I like the trajectory that I'm on. I will have to say that if I could do it all over again, I would definitely do some things differently. But overall, I like my life trajectory. I like where it's going. And I feel like there may have been some down times, but it was steadily going up overall. Thank you, Tashawn. Thank you. I appreciate it. I know I was not easy to deal with. Oh, girl, I know I was a nutcase. I definitely was genuine in trying to help people out. What I was trying to do, and you weren't on here the day that I talked about how to get started and how to finance your business, but I was talking about how you can barter with people, and if you own properties, a lot of times if you're willing to put a roof over someone's head, they may be willing to give you some of their time and do work for you if you can't afford to pay them, but you can let them have a place to live. They don't have to worry about rent. I was just talking about that, and you're one of those examples where we had first gotten started with kind of some bartering type of things going on, because I didn't have a lot of money to offer. And all I had to offer was either the idea of getting on board and helping it to grow and be a part of it, or just, you know, the promise of it one day being something good. And I had a lot of people. Do you remember Jennifer? She is who I originally started with. Her and my sister and, believe it or not, Brian's dad. I think that was the original team of 4 people. Yep, and she is the one who, when things didn't go her way, she ratted us out to the state and got us in trouble. Basically, we got ourselves in trouble, but she was the one that put us on the map, on the radar, basically. And you know what, stuff like that was the first time in my life, I think, that I had ever experienced something like that with a human being. Not saying that I hadn't had anybody disappoint. The Jennifer, I don't want to say her last name, that would be tacky, but Jennifer, when I had to tell her that her performance was not suitable enough to stay a part of the team, when I relieved her of her duty and told her that she wasn't performing enough she wasn't working hard enough to be considering herself a boss or somebody that's building a business. She wasn't putting in the work, and so she got upset. And she went and told the Office of Child Care that we were operating an illegal daycare next door. Yep. And like I said, that was the first time I had ever experienced anything like that. I didn't even know that people did stuff like that. I mean, it was just not in my mind, because that's not really the way I operate. You know, of course I've met people that were shady or did things that were hateful and spiteful, but just in that setting, when you're messing with my money, it was a real weird feeling. It was just like, I remember me and Valencia, we were just like, I think Valencia was around. We were just perplexed. Yep. She had to go. That's the hard thing. The people that you start with are rarely the people that you finish with. Messing with money is another story. But that's why those kind of situations over the years, I got stronger and stronger. And guess what? To this day, now if I do business, there are just certain things I just won't do. I don't care how cool the person might seem. I don't care how eager they might be. I'm not going to do anything shady or let them in on any inside type of stuff, or do anything where they can have anything on me or over my head. Like, those days of operating are over. You know, I may have needed to have done those things to survive in the past, but those days are over. But because people will, as soon as you do something they don't like, people that are like that will definitely try to sabotage your business. It has happened time and time again. Every time you fire an employee and you're in child care or assisted living, you know the state is coming within the next day or two to investigate complaints about your place. You've had people take your recipes. See, like, no integrity. Like, no integrity. Just people. I remember I had an employee where she was such a good teacher. I was always praising her. The parents loved her. This was at the Clinton Center, the commercial center. And they just loved her a lot. And I just remember feeling like, thank God, we finally got somebody that's really good with the kids. She's reliable. She shows up. And do you know, all of a sudden, she disappears. And literally, like, the whole class, maybe except one or two children, a whole class of about 15 children, or maybe a little less, end up leaving, and she started washing them out of her basement. I cried. I'm not gonna lie, I cried. This was a long time ago. I cried because I was, I'm a sensitive person. I'm still sensitive, but I'm tougher now. But back then, I was getting toughened up by going through stuff like that, because I was like, dang, people do stuff like that? Oh yeah, she disappeared, and one of the people who had heard about what happened, because they tried to keep it quiet. When the parents are coming and they're talking to your employees, and the employee hands them their personal number. So I started developing rules that were like fraternization policies. You do not give my customers your personal number. You do not hang out with our customers. I had to actually make a policy, and that policy would piss off employees, like new people who would come, and even people who would start now. If they know that's a policy, they're like, who does she think she is, or why does this place want to control who I hang with and who I talk to? But they weren't there to see all the things that happen, from allowing that kind of stuff to happen. So when you experience things, now you put a rule in place to try to prevent that thing from happening again. And now every time, if I see a star employee who's just really good with the customers and they just love them so much, now instead of me being happy about it, I kind of side-eye it. I know it sounds weird, but I side-eye it. Yeah, see, when you don't think a certain way, you it's hard for you to believe other people that think a certain way even exist until you experience it. Like people who are like sociopaths or narcissistic personality disorder, or people who have just no empathy and no feelings, or people that are very jealous hearted, or just wicked, just got a wicked way about themselves. If you don't think that way, you don't even know those people exist until you encounter them. Because it's almost like if you've been around your family and all your family are pretty good folks and everything, and now you get out into the world and you're like, what is this mess? People do this? We doing this now? And then you learn, and I learned the hard way, because I would trust people a lot. You know, I would overshare my personal information with people in the business. And so now when I meet business acquaintances or employees, I don't do that stuff I used to do. I don't do that stuff anymore. Only one person who works at the daycare now knows me, out of like maybe the 9 or 10 or so people that work there. I don't even know how many people work there, and I haven't been there in so long. So I just don't. And I think this is why when you have this idea like that employees don't like their bosses, or they have like this attitude, especially when they can see the person, they see the owner up close and personal, a lot of times they feel like you're impersonal, or you think you're better than them, or you come in and you may not be really talkative, or you might run in and out without speaking to anybody. Like, let's say it's like you go through the hallway and all the classroom doors are closed. You don't actually stop and say hi to everyone. There would be times that I would do that, but they didn't understand. I felt like I had been so abused by employees and misused and mistreated and taken for granted that I actually start to develop a fear of getting close with employees. I started to just distance myself and look at them as a professional, and I will treat you with respect, but if I can avoid you, I will. Like, that's the kind of idea that I had, because honestly, employing people is for me one of the worst parts, if not the worst part about doing business, is having to employ people, because it's hard. And I don't think I'm very good at it. I'm not really signing up to be a supervisor. I think that I can mentor people and maybe inspire people if they're trying to do something, like how I'm trying to do this Boss Up Challenge. But when it comes to having to oversee day to day what people are doing and how they're doing their job, I don't like that. Because number one, I have a spirit of excellence, and I have certain things that I expect to be a certain way, and it just seems like a lot of people are not like that. And I hold myself to that standard. I try to aim high. And then you get people who come and they do these type of businesses, and I would get offended. I would be upset, actually angry, to see the way the employees would mistreat like the elderly people and be rude and mean to them. I walk into the house, pop up, they don't know I'm coming, and it's somebody sitting in a diaper that's so filled with urine that it's like their pants are wet. You know what I mean? And you're looking, and they're like sitting on the couch, texting on their phone or watching the TV. I never mastered the art of learning how to talk to that person in that moment. I don't curse them out or anything, but I might say something like, you know, I might walk in and be like, look at the person, look at the resident, look back at the person, and be like, so you on your phone while Mrs. Jones is over there about to develop pressure sores and get infected from an overfilled, saturated diaper and damp skin because you want to text? And is that what I'm, because really you could go home if that's what I'm paying you to do. Like, that's how I would talk, right? And that's not the smoothest approach, no. And maybe if I was selling t-shirts, I would not have felt so passionate. But it's like, this is a human being. This is somebody's mother right here. And the same thing in childcare. This is somebody's baby right here. Like, why are these bathrooms looking like this? Would y'all want y'all child to sit on a toilet that looks like that? Or that has urine pooled around the bottom of the toilet? Do y'all know how to clean? I had to like actually spell out how to clean a toilet. Wipe the handle, wipe the tank, wipe the bowl, get the inside, get the bottom. You know what I mean? Like, make sure the urine isn't pooled. Wipe around the bottom part. Man, I'm telling you. You just said what I said. Let me see. Oh, you said it to yourself. You remember? You remember how I used to be? You remember? All right, so on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being not so bad at all, and 10 being the worst you have ever seen, how did I used to be? You can tell me now, because, well, you would have told me then, even when you were working with me. I didn't play. No, I didn't play. Playing is for recess. We're not at recess. We're in business. We taking care of people. 10, the worst I ever seen. A 10? Oh, dang. I thought you would have said like maybe a 6, 7 tops. Oh gosh, I'm the worst you have ever seen. You probably was around in my fighting days. Oh yeah, you used to live with me. Yeah. So you had a glimpse into my personal life too. You got to see that I was a person that had a temper, or that, you know, was emotional. You just kind of had that inside. You had the advantage over everyone. But I actually liked you. I mean, I didn't like everybody, but I didn't hang out with everybody. You were somebody that, like, I just used to laugh with a lot. And didn't we go get tattoos together? I want to say. Like, now I cannot picture myself going to get a tattoo with one of my employees or someone that is on payroll, or that I have like a business arrangement with, who wasn't already like my friend or something. Yeah, I didn't play, man, and I still don't play. My family calls me Master Barrett whenever we get together on a project and we're working, because they're like, you just crack the whip over people. But they know that it comes from a good place, and I think that's why. But it takes a special person. That's why Valencia, she's a person that I always respected, because she never really left my side. She was one of those females that learned how to work with me and to pay me no mind if I needed to get over myself. So, but it takes, I would say that even now that I'm doing better and I'm more refined, it takes a special person to be able to work with me, because I have really high expectations, and I don't have any cut cards. Yeah, we did get tattoos together, girl. Like I said, if I could go back in time and do some things different. So it just shows like the human side. I hope what you're seeing here is not to waste your time or whatever. And it's funny because I have more viewers now than I did at the beginning part of this talk. But I want you all to kind of see that, you know, everybody is just a human being at the end of the day. All right, you take care. everybody's just a human being at the end of the day. So whether you're a boss or whatever, you have had experiences. You are not perfect. You are a human being. I am a human being. So give it a shot if you think you can do it. Yep. It is a part of the challenge. Don't get tattoos with your staff. Don't live with your staff if you can help it. If you have to do that to get started, fine, but behave yourself. Like, act like you have some sense. If you have to, you know, mingle, it's okay to like be friendly and take your staff out to like dinners and things that inspire people to get together. But getting personal and all of that, yeah, I was like 26 years old. Not trying to make excuses, but I was young, and I was on the slow learning curve about what to do and what not to do. Yeah, I definitely believe it. Thank you, though. Thank you, and I'm proud of you. You have a beautiful family, a beautiful home, and I'm proud of you for getting your book together. If there's anything I can do to be of assistance, anything within my capabilities and the constraints that I work with, I am willing to help. I don't like to say anything you need, I'm here. I feel like that's cliche and it's not true. No, I cannot help people with anything they need, but anything that I'm capable of doing to help you and able to do, let me know, because I will. And thank you for being there from the beginning, because you were one of the people that I could lean on when things were tough, and you were around during the roughest years, day one years. All right, everybody, so if there aren't any more questions or comments, I'll give you a hug too. I want to see you, all that pretty hair. I know Serena is just a grown woman now. We have to catch up for sure. So anybody else? I see now the viewers are going down. Anybody else? Are we done for tonight? Okay, I think we are done. And I wouldn't be surprised if Derek had to sign off, because we have been going a while. So he might not be able to call it for us tonight, but I'll wait and see if he's still watching. What time is it? So basically, when I get off of here, I have to work on, I'm going to try my best to at least spend about an hour or two working on some of the startup expenses for this project that we're working on right now. The one that I told you all that we're going to be meeting like every day. Today we met at 3 o'clock, but starting tomorrow we're going to be doing a check-in at 10 o'clock every night to make sure everybody's on point with their productivity. So I've been getting pretty tough with folks. So I have to practice what I preach and make sure that I show the team that I'm putting in the effort. So I guess I will let you all go, and I'll try to get some work done tonight. And please tune back in tomorrow, 9 o'clock. And I'll determine what the topic will be. If there are any special requests for topics, please inbox me, because I do take requests. And if it's something that I feel I can speak on, then I'll make that the topic of the evening. All right? Okay, you are still there. I should have known you were still there. You are just as faithful as you want to be. Okay, he called it. Derek called it. So it's a wrap, everybody. Please remember to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. It would really be helpful to help me grow. Hey, Toya. It's another one of my good folks who used to be there back in the day when I was a monster. So yeah, good night, everybody. I'll wait around to see if any more comments pop up. But other than that, boss up, everybody. Everybody who wants to, everybody who even wants to try, boss up. Okay. Toya, you in there? I didn't want to cut you off if you was about to say something. Okay. Then it's a wrap. Good night, everybody.